Is starting its second round of public consultations on the 23rd of July to review its editorial policy. This follows on the first round of consultations that started back in 2017. So the closing date for this year's public consultation ends on the 1st of August. The SABC sent out a team to gather the public's input and submissions to develop a draft policy that was submitted to the corporation's operations committee for comment. So joining us now to update us, we've got Philly Moilwa, who is the General Manager of Policy and Regulatory Affairs here at the SABC. Philly, thank you. Good to have you here.
Good morning, Leanne. Thanks for having me on the show.
So the first round, it commenced and it's been done on SABC's editorial policy. The second round, what are you hoping to come out of this?
Well, the second round really is just a finalization process. What we did last year all over the country was to collate information from members of the public, and we have taken that information to amend the existing policies. So we're going back to them to say, this is the draft, this is what we use to formulate the amendments to the existing policies, and therefore have your final say.
Okay, so this is the last time that anybody's going to be able to, because the 1st of August is around the corner. And how long is it going to be open for? Because we've got them opening on the 23rd of July, and how long will it run for?
Well, it runs until the 1st of August.
Until the 1st of August, okay. Why a second round of public consultation, though? Why is it necessary? Well,
it's necessary for two reasons. Firstly, people need to know before this becomes an officially codified document through ICASA as to what is there in the document that they have made input in. And I think it's important to trace a little bit of history. When the first round of this was done in 2016, we had a problem as the SABC because there was a complaint that we never properly consulted in terms of the final policies. Therefore, we want to rectify that so that members of the public can be able to see the policies before they are finally lodged with ICASA.
Well, I mean, that's an important aspect of it, because I think a lot of the time the public ask themselves, you know, why should I bother even going? Are you going to listen to us? And that's, I think, what South Africa needs a reassurance of. The public input, do you take it seriously? Oh
yeah, we take it very seriously. I mean, there were quite very interesting things that came out of the engagement with the members of the public. For example, the issue of language came very, very strong. A lot of people feel strong about language in terms of how do we treat language. Yeah. There was also the whole issue of mistrust or trust deficit with the SABC around news. And we had to really entrench that by looking at the policy and see what mechanism can we put out there so that members of the public can have confidence that if they have any complaint around what is flighted in the news, will they be taken seriously? And we propose a mechanism for that. Yeah. I mean, a very interesting one. We're proposing a news ombudsman.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is really important. But I mean, since I'm trying to think back to when our whole new launch took place of the news branding. Obviously, a lot has changed since last year. Independent, impartial. Sure. What has the feedback been so far? And will this, of course, come through in the public consultations?
It will come through. There's no doubt that SABC has gone through a serious transition. What we are just doing is going back and saying, how do we get these policies to be future-proofed? And that's really why members of the public should be able to say, despite what good changes the SABC has in, but is there any mechanism in place that they can use as a referral to say, if I have a problem, where do I go, how does it get handled, and how does SABC deal with programming and content?
Well, and it's very important, especially coming into an election year. You know, next year, the public, as well as this year, because it is a run-up to an election, they need the public broadcaster to be transparent, and I think that that's the fear of the public, is that, you know, when it comes to elections, things start changing. But I imagine the idea is to not have something like that happen.
Oh yeah, I think if one takes the pair of line impartial and without fear of or favor, as the one can follow that logic, is that we don't have to be only be on paper saying this is what we're doing, but actually should be seen really walking the talk. But this policy is really a reflection on what members of the public are feeling. Yeah. But quite interestingly is that there were other issues that were not policy related, which you must go and listen to the public in terms of what their issues are.
Well, I mean, one of the issues I can imagine that'll come up, and I ask you sincerely if it is posing a bit of a problem. We're now seeing our SABC COO, Chris Maroleng, being pulled into a battle with the whole contract and the investigation around the appointment of Robert Marawa. Is this something that the public is also a little bit concerned about, and once again worrying that, please, let's not go backwards when we look like we're going forwards?
Well, I think that's the employer-employee relationship. I wouldn't want to comment on that, really.
Yeah.
Because it's not really an editorial policy issue per se.
No, certainly not editorial policy, but it is a process, and one would hope that it doesn't cast any doubt anywhere. Can you give assurances to the public that this, an incident like this is not something that'll have an effect on editorial policy?
Well, what I might say is, look, in any organization, there are always challenges, there are always issues. What is significant to members of the public is how the SABC handles its own problems. And I think we get judged by how we deal with issues that I doubt if we can never have a situation where there's going to be no issue with an employee or any other issue of that, can bring public attention ourselves. But I think what is most important is how SABC handles its own issues.
Certainly it is. Thanks, Philly. Thanks very, very much for talking to us. So just a little bit more about this. Philly Moilwa is the General Manager of the Regulatory Board, talking to us, of course, about the public consultations with regard to the SABC's editorial policy. Submissions and inputs on the draft policy can also be sent via email. So you can do that if you can't go in person to policy@sabc.co.za. That email address again, policy@sabc.co.za.